Hello guys and welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be doing an in-depth review of the giant Trinity Advanced Pro, which is my race bike for the 2022 triathlon season. I've had this bike now for a year and I love it and it's great, and so I thought, why not do a review on this, because I've had so many questions about it. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the integration. This bike is fully integrated, meaning there's no wires sticking out, there's nothing sort of on the outside of the bike that shouldn't be there. Now, the last bike I had was the Sabello P2, and it was just a faff. There were wires coming out all over the place, there were bolts sticking out. It was just a mess to look at, and it was a mess to change things around because the wires were always getting in the way. Now, with this, there's none of that. It's clean, it's precisionally made, and it just looks good, feels good, and is easy to change things around because there's not stuff getting in the way. Now, this leads perfectly onto my second point, which is adjustability. This bike is extremely adjustable. You can change the riser stack, you can change your arm pads, the extensions, your angled shim. You can change pretty much anything, and on top of that, you can add other components which aren't giant own brand, which for me is a massive, massive, massive plus. Now, I know you can do this on other bikes, but you need all sorts of different adapters and things. Now, with a giant Trinity, you don't need that. You can just whack them on and they fit. And for me, this is so good because it means this bike is adaptable to everybody's positions. If you want longer extensions, you can get them, and you don't have to get any adapter with it. It's just quick, easy, and relatively cost effective as well. And for me, that is great because there's no messing around, there's no faffing, and it fits everybody's needs. So you can have any component you want on this bike, and I guarantee it will fit on. So for me, that is a massive, massive, massive plus. So if you have a look at my front end at the moment, I'm running the Sync extensions, the Sync arm cups, which are super deep and wide, which allow you to lock into a really great position. I've got the Drag to Zero 20-degree angled shim, and then I've got these riser stack here which come with the bike. So for me, that front end matches my needs. Now, if you wanted something that was different from that, this bike will also match that. You could just take those components off, and put the ones you wanted on. So for me, that is a massive, massive plus. And to be honest with you, I like the fact that I can put what I want on it without having to get special adapters from the brand, which usually cost a fortune, because I know with Trek, those things do cost an absolute fortune. Now, if we take a look down to the bottom end of this bike, and we'll take a look at the gearing. So the gearing on the bike is great. Now, I know you can change this if you want to, and it's always sort of up to people what they want to run on the bike. I run, as I said in the previous video, a 54 one by and a 1130 cassette on the back. For me, this works great. Now, I'm based in the UK, so the roads are undulating, and this gearing works absolutely fine for me. I also think it looks extremely clean, and it's extremely just, it looks good. And for me, that's a big part of the picture as well, because if your bike looks good, you're going to race good. And on top of that, it's efficient. I like the setup. It's quick, easy, clean, and efficient. I think that sums up Giant as a brand, to be honest with you. They're not putting things on the bike that aren't necessary. It's the bare minimum, but in a good way. So they're not sort of trying to make it super cheap and not good, but at the same time, they're not putting things on it for the sake of it to make it look cool. And that, for me, is why I like riding this bike, because it just keeps it dialed in. Everything you want is on it, but there's no extra stuff which they're charging you for. Now, this leads perfectly onto my next point as well, which is the cost of the bike. It's an extremely cost-efficient bike, especially for a top-of-the-range TT bike. If you're looking at other brands, for example, Trek, Argon 18, Canyon, you're spending tens of thousands of pounds. With a giant Trinity, you're spending way, 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 way less than that. I got this bike off Facebook Marketplace, and so I managed to get a really good deal on it. However, I know you can buy these new for 3,000–4,000, which is still a lot of money, but a lot less than other top-of-the-range TT bikes. And if you buy it second-hand, like I did, you can still get it way, way cheaper than that. So I bought this bike all in, without the wheels, for £1,300, which, yeah, is still a lot of money. But to get electronic shifting, you know, a fully integrated bike, just an absolute beast of a machine, I thought that was a great deal. Now, if we move down onto the cranks, so the bike came with a Quark DZ0 Spider power meter, which is really, really accurate, and I like that. It matches very close to my trainer, and the crank length is 175mm. This is slightly longer than I would choose to, however, you can swap these in and out depending on what sort of suits you. In terms of the pedals that I run the Look pedals, they're great. I like them, they work for me. I know some people like to run speed plays, that's fine, you can just interchange them. It's very easy, it's not particularly hard at all. Now, if we look down here to the bottom of the bike, you'll see that it's all extremely clean. There's nothing extra on there that you don't need. And also there is a bottle cage mount on the down tube of the bike. For me, this is great because Often on TT bikes, they don't have those. Now, you might argue, yeah, this is the most aerodynamic thing, and yeah, it's not, but you can put an air bottle on that and be a very minimal cost. Now, for me, having this option is great, because like I just said, it's an option. If you don't want to run a bottle cage there, you don't have to. However, you can do if you want. Now, there's other bikes that don't have this on the bike. They just get rid of it and it's not available. Now, I would much rather have the choice to be able to run one if I wanted to than not, and I think that's a great thing to have on this bike. Now, if we move over to the side here, I've just taken where my front derailleur to the bike would be. This is just to save a few watts, and you know, every watt counts, so why not? In terms of the brakes to the bike, so the brakes are probably the biggest downside to this race bike. It's not the best. The braking quality is not the best. Now, does this matter, does it not? I think to some people, yes, this massively matters, and to others, not at all. For me, I'm in a middle ground. I would rather have a disc brake bike if possible, but at the moment, getting a top-of-the-range TT bike with disc brakes is costing an absolute fortune. So, for me, it's just not viable, and I just don't see a point. Now, I would love to have disc brakes. However, is this the be-all, end-all for myself? No, not really. I would much rather have all these other things right that I've just talked about and have to deal with poor braking than not have these things right and have disc brakes. So it's a compromise that I'm willing to take. If you're on your bike and you're putting the brakes on, look, you do stop. You're not just going to crash. But at the same time, there's a little bit of a gap between when you put the brakes on and when the actual braking starts to work effectively, especially in the wet. When it's raining, they're not the best. That is my honest opinion. In the dry, it's not the end of the world. And in a race when the roads are shut and you've not got to worry about oncoming traffic and that sort of thing, in my opinion, it's not the end of the world. So that's something where I think it will bother some people more than others, but for me, I'm fine with it. I don't mind. It's okay. If we take a look at the top end of the bike here, you'll see that everything is nice and flush. We've got a cover here that allows you to put your junction box in, so it's not sticking up, it's not getting in the way. It's nice and clean. It's flush with the bike. For me, that's a big bonus, because you're not going to stick your junction box, you know, on top of your bottle or stuck somewhere else. You can pop it in there, and that for me is great because it just makes it clean, easy, effective, and it's out of the way. You don't have to worry about it, you know, getting dropped or anything like that. Now, if we move slightly back here to the seat post, you know, it fits nicely. You've got a little plastic thing on here that sits and holds the seat post in snug, and it's just those little extra bits that I think are great on this bike. Like, look, you don't need this, but it's there. It makes it look good. It fits snug. It's not looking unfinished, and I think that sums, again, Giant up. Nothing's unfinished. Everything's sort of maximised as best as possible, and it's a great priced bike as well. So for me, that is absolutely awesome. Now, the bike comes with, well, when I bought it, it came with electronic shifting. I think it's great. It's quick, easy, efficient, and it works pretty well. Very minimal difference between the electronic shifting, so SRAM Red 11-speed, and Ultegra. I think it's very marginal. However, I really like it. It's quick, easy, efficient, and effective. The one thing I would say is the downside is obviously you've got to charge your battery. If you forget to do that, well, you're stuck in one gear, which may be good or bad, depending on whether you're stuck in a really hard gear or an easy gear. But when you're in a race, that's not what you want. You really don't want to be stuck in a gear, especially when you're trying to maximise performance and you're having to shift from gear to be as efficient as possible. So making sure you charge your battery is an essential. In terms of the bolts on the bike, if you take a look, it's all clean, it's all flush with the bike, nothing sticking out. To you, that might sound like common sense, like, yeah, obviously there's not going to be bolts sticking out. But on loads of bikes, especially bikes that aren't top tier, you will find there's all sorts of shit sticking out. Bolts, you know, little leads, wires, just all over the place. So for me, the fact that the bolts are flush, sit in the bike and don't stick out is a massive plus. It makes it look good, it makes it more aerodynamic, and quite frankly, that's how it should be. If you want to have a bike that runs smoothly and is effective, you don't want stuff sticking out that's going to get rusted, corroded, and is just exposed. You want it to be as, you know, hidden away as possible. So yeah, you know, that's my breakdown of the Giant Trinity Advanced Pro. I think it's a great bike. I think it's a cost-effective, top-of-the-range time trial bike to have, and quite frankly, I would recommend it to anyone. The one downside, I would say, is the braking. However, I don't think it's the end of the world. I know to some people it will be more of a problem than to, say, me or to some other people, but I love it. I think it's great. I think it's awesome, and I would recommend it to absolutely anybody.